back to the channel. Back on the Escort, continuing our engine mounts and engine fitting. As you can see, it is in, and I've even fitted the carbs temporarily just to start with the mocking up, and because I wanted to, because they look pretty. Thanks for joining in and subscribing and being part of the channel. It's a big help. So in today's episode, we're carrying on with our install of the engine. So it's part 2 of that. You'll have no doubt watched part 1 already and seen the troubles we had there. So we had to come to a plan B, and that has worked, sort of. As you'll see in the video, remake the mounts, made them up once, all tacked together, then had to cut parts of them off and get them again, because you'll see in the video I explain as I go along. So all that's left to do now is a gearbox mount, which we'll do that on the next one. So I hope you enjoy this, and again, same as usual, if you're a watcher, not a subscriber, please do subscribe. Okie dokie, so back at this. So in order to get clearance, be able to get to that bolt, which is, this is going to be okay. Thank you for everybody's suggestions, by the way. Some suggested that I modify the actual cross member. I did consider that. Somebody suggested I should cut that knobbler thing off there, and maybe next time I do this I'll consider that, but I've already built this bracket now. That would have given me more clearance between there, but I think there's just enough I can work with. So with that, what I've done, I've put this in progressively lower until I can't get this bolt out anymore, and now there's just enough clearance. If using a bolt, not a cap head, so I can get a span on it, I can now undo that and pull it right out. So that's going to make that possible to fit that. So what I'm going to do next now is start building to this from there. I'm going to do this, just tack it in place one piece at a time. Sort of a square piece from there to there, sort of thing, from there to there, and sort of work my way around it and just tack it in place. Same with the other side, because what I want to do is be able to get this engine and subframe connected as one and then drop the car over it. Let's do our first template. So if we drop out a piece sort of roughly the size and then work our way to it. We could sort of come across from there to spread the load across, I guess. Yes, I think that'll work quite nicely for our first piece. So transfer this into steel now and then tack that in place. Then we can look at coming around front and back as well. I think that'll give plenty of strength in there then as well, hopefully, because it'll be spreading the load across into the bracket rather than just hanging it all off this part of the bracket here, which hasn't actually got any connection to the block. So we need to sort of spread it across there. Okie dokie, that's our first piece. Let's see how it fits. Could fit better. A little bit of touching up to grind it so it fits through there, and I need to bevel it, of course. I'll probably end up knife edging that a little bit. Okay, so that's that ground off with appropriate bevels and the likes, so it'll fit nicely. I've also put a bevel on that in preparation for this side, so that'll fit in there very nicely now, and there's plenty of room there to get some nice weld in. So what I'll do now is get the welder fired up and spot these in place. Righto, that started us off. So I think the next piece I'll do is this square in here. Same again, just template it with cardboard and steel and then tack a piece in. I'll do the same process all the way around it. And on this side, of course, we don't want to come all the way down there with it, because you want access to our bolt still, so we need to come sort of straight across there somewheres. Yes, I think that'll work. So that piece in there next, and then we'll work on to the next one. So again, same thing, cut this out in steel, weld it in. Okay, so that's that all ground down and beveled off, ready to go in there somewhere. So hopefully now you can see this starting to take a bit of shape here, and give us our engine mount. It's not turning out too bad as it happens, even though it was a bit tight. It's not as bad as it could have been. This side's not so obvious. I started thinking that I could use something like that and sort of come in at an angle like that with it. But then I'm wondering how we'll connect it up to this side. So what I think I'll do is take this apart now, make up some templates, cut some metal, then put it back on the car and see about tacking it in place on the car, or on the engine I should say rather. I'm glad I did that, because now I can see a bit more clearly what we're trying to do here. So pop that up on my knee. So I think better, rather than trying sort of fading that out in there, would be to bring this across straight parallel to that one, then box that off. So we'll do this one next along here. I'll scribe a straight edge down from there so we know where we're going, and I think that'll make more sense. So same again, cardboard template, metal. I'll just crack on and do with that now, and I'll show you when it's all tacked up. This is where we got with this one. So this sort of developed arms and legs a little bit because the different level there and there. Had to split it down the middle to get it to form some shape. I forgot to bevel it down there. That's no problem. I can just get a grinding disc in there and bevel that before I weld it. So I'll leave it like this for now, as tacked together in case there's some changes to make. I'll bolt this back onto the engine and then start working on the other side. And the moment of truth, will this one fit? Of course it does. We're running a thread chaser through the screws. Bolt holes, I should say. There we go, so that's all bolted in nicely. First engine mount in place. Not forgetting this nut here, of course. Having a little bit of a rethink on this side. So that this bolt will be able to, same problem with the bottom left bolt. So this bolt will be able to come out. If I just come straight across there, like so, that's not going to come out. So we need to be coming at that sort of angle, so we've got enough space for the bolt to come out or something like that. So what I'm thinking on this side now, instead of just having a disc on there, actually extending it over here and the mount coming to here somewhere, and then gusseting it over onto that so that we can then get access to the bolt. Something along these sort of lines. So it'll come across from there to there sort of thing, and there to there, and box all that off, and then we can put some gussets in which allow us then still get access to that bolt there, and even a bolt on there. Right, so that's that, made out of steel, and a nut welded on the back just as before. So that gives me a bit more options now as to coming across to that plate there. So I think I'll do is same as before, cardboard template and bang in steel bits as we go. And there we have the finished article. Made exactly the same way as the other one. Template round each time, tack it, weld it. When it's strong enough, take it off to tack in the other bits. And you can see a little gusset there ready to go, just to spread the load. And this bolt fits in there nicely. So that's all good news. So stick this back on the car, on the engine, keep going to see the car, onto the engine, and then we're ready to get the car to drop over the engine. So there we have it. Engine mount, possibly a bit heavier than it needs to be, but I don't want to take a risk on this. So that's nicely gusseted across there now, so that should spread the load nicely where it should be. Same with this side. It's all spreading the load into the block mount. So I'm pretty confident they'll be good enough. So the next challenge is to figure a way of making the car go higher. I can't use the engine crane because it'll all be in the way, so I have a cunning plan which involves that bit of steel there, a gap in my roof over there, which I'll then bring across to about here somewhere and make some sort of support there, and over on my bench over there somewhere, tidying down there, is a winch. So I'll make up some sort of winch arrangement of that so we can winch the front of the car up, wheel the engine under it and drop it down and see what happens. Righto, after a bit of trial and error, this is what we've come up with. So the chain across there, linked around the back of the block there, pulley there of sorts, pulley there, and my winch mechanism there. Now I did have a bit of a failure to begin with, which happened here, and this is why you got an extra chain going in here and the chain going over there, so to take the tension up of that. So all this is now doing is taking the downward load, which isn't a lot because the car's not that heavy and it's empty, and I'm certainly not going to put the load on it with the engine in. I'm just going to off the engine in and up and see where we're at. Righto, well, it's looking sort of promising. The holes for the cross member are not a million miles off there, so that's good. And we've got the nice clearance on the bulkhead that we want, but we've got the old issue in here, the gearbox tunnel. So what I need to do next is cut that back and then try again. Hopefully I won't get in the way of the camera while I'm doing this. So the idea now is to cut that around there somewheres and see how we get on. Hoping I can do it with a jigsaw, because there is a strengthening piece underneath there, if I remember correctly. So hopefully the blade will be long enough to go through the lot. But well, it's one way to find out. Just crack on and do it. Super! Right, let's try again. Okay, so I ended up having to cut more out of that again. Definitely more than I was hoping I had to, but hey ho, we can always weld bits back together again. Oh, we've got to get the hackers out again. Look, we're still catching there. Now we're catching there. So we need to take a little lump out of that. And we're still catching over here. So I shall attack that with the jigsaw and we'll try again. Okay, that's cut out. This hole is growing alarmingly. But let's see, we'll have to work out, make some sort of tunnel around there just for the gear stick. But I was hoping that we could avoid that because I wanted to use a carpet set for the auto box, but that's obviously not going to work now, so I have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Right, well, we're getting there. We've got 2 bolts lined up, but the engine needs to be canted. You'll see what I mean now. The subframe is a funny angle, so I need to see if I can jack the back up to get it to go where we want it, which you might not like because I think we're still going to start catching the gearbox here, which is a nuisance to say the least. But jack it back up now and see what happens. Okay, getting there slowly. Actually what I needed to do was drop the gearbox so the engine would cant more of an angle upwards slightly. So that's kind of where we want it. We go up a little bit there. Oh, my plan is now is to get that nut and bolt tightened up there to bring that square, and hopefully we can start lining things up. So I'll tighten those up now, see what happens there, both sides, and we can get all 4 bolts in. Happy days. Well, that's good news. We've got all 4 chassis bolts done up. The engine is in. Somewhere along the line I broke the VVT controller. That's annoying, I have to buy a new one. That's snapped off somewhere, I hadn't noticed. The gearbox is lining up, sort of. I have to probably do something a bit more, probably have to drop it down just a touch more. You notice the cam cover's off. That's because this bit here is sticking in the bulkhead, so I'll probably have to cut that off and do something about that, make a new breather some ways. But it's in, so that's the good news. And the other bit of good news is my garage didn't fall down with my contraption. As it happens, cam cover's fitting okay now. The back of the gearbox has come up just a little bit, just enough to give a bit of clearance on there. So I might even get away with putting some sort of elbow on that directly, one way or the other, pick up a catch can. I couldn't resist bolting the carbs on because that looks good. And in here, this is where we're at with the gearbox. That has to poke through quite a lot. I think it could come down just a gnat's more, just there, half an inch or so. But we're going to have to build a tunnel thingy around that. But that's not the problem. Also on the good news front is the steering shaft is missing the gearbox and starter motor and all that malarkey. It may get in the way of the clutch master cylinder job down there, but I'm sure we can figure something out for that. Time to try out a new contraption. My mate Barry gave me this. He knows I'm up to this sort of nonsense, and this turned up in a pile of stuff he bought. He said, I know you'll like this, and he was right. So some sort of weird engine crane type thing where you can just support the weight of the engine while you do stuff. So I think that'll work well for getting the engine mounts out and fully welding them. I'm not sure whether I'm using this right or not. In fact, I think I might rethink this side and do similar to what we've done on this side. It sort of spreads the load and probably help keep the engine more level. So I think I'll do that right now. Right, well, there's one way to find out. Let's undo an engine mount and see what happens. There we go. One engine mount out. And this is what you only tack stuff, because I think there's some slight rejigging needs to go on here. You can see it's a bit of an angle here now. Probably because I put the engine and gearbox in presuming they'll be level, and they're not. They need to cant downwards very slightly. I think they're going to be the same on this one. I think there'll be a little bit of rejigging to do with that as well. That's no problem. Quick cut off of the welds and boom, we'll soon sort that out. So I've cut this one off of there, so I can now rearrange where that goes. So that's going to move back very slightly and spot weld that back, or tack weld that back onto there. Same this side. Cut that tab off, relocated it. Had to cut clearance for that bolt to come through. Cut in the wrong place to begin with, but we can soon weld that back in. And I don't think we're going to need the gusset we had on there now, because it's moved that a little bit further forward or back onto the mounting. It doesn't seem to be so bad. So just tack those in place now, and then we can start fully welding them. The other thing I've done as well, I've got a spirit level and gone from there. You can see the car is not level. You can see where the bubble is, just off to the left of the line by about 2 mil. Put that across the cams, and we are the same. So the engine's at the same canter as the car is, so that's good news. And you can see it's square in the engine bay, and we have enough room in there now for the gearbox. There's about a finger's width all the way around there, which is rule of thumb is what you want. And the sump is all clearing nicely and all that, so we're looking good. We can do something with that now. Some of the gaps have grown a little bit, but we can soon fill those in with a bit of weld. That's no biggie. That's just because the orientation has changed very slightly, so that the angles are very slightly different, but we can soon fill that up with weld. One thing we'll know for definite with that is the weld will be well penetrated. So, happy days. Right, all welded up, ready for a good dressing back and cleaning up. So see the smoke coming out of that one. Then painting, then they're ready to finish off. So what I do when I dress it off, I'll round these corners off nicely. It's just making it look neater, so rounding those corners off and just giving the whole thing a good clean up. Yeah, that's the first one ground up. Looking shiny, ready for a bit of paint. It's quite pleased how that's come out. It's a bit more organic than I thought it would be, but yeah, quite happy with that. Yeah, it's a bit of primer chucked at them. What a difference a bit of paint makes. So leave that set off and get a bit of black on them next. Rightio then, that's them all painted up nicely and looking splendid. So let's get them bolted back onto the engine now and into the car and see how we're looking. Right, we're now ready to finish and fit our engine mounts. I've probably been a bit too hasty in this, and the paint isn't fully hardened, but I'll probably get them another paint when the time comes. It's still only dry fixing. So I've run a tap through the thread there to clean the paint and gunk off, and a 10mm drill bit just by hand to clean the paint out of those as well. So we should now be able to fit this to the engine, and away we go. I think I'll fully tighten that one once we've got the other mount in place and drop this off. Right, same again. Quickly run a tap through there just to clean the paint off of it. Put that snug into there nicely. And then 10mm drill bit just to make sure that there's nothing snagging in them. Lovely. Super. Right, now if we undo this, we should be good. Well, thank you, Barry. This gadget has worked an absolute treat. This has saved me having to get the wheelie engine crane back out again and faff about with that, which is always a nuisance. Happy days indeed. Right, so that's his final resting place. This has edged back a little bit closer to the bulkhead, so we'll have to do something about that. This is some sort of weird alloy. I'm not quite sure what it is. I don't think it doesn't appear to be plastic. It appears to be some sort of nasty metal like Mazak or something like that. So it might be a case of I can just chop that off. I will light that up and make a new breather outlet. I'll have to do some research on that. The VVT solenoid that snapped off, that's almost certainly my fault, messing around with the engine crane and changing that. No longer available, but the good news is it's the same part as a VW Passat apparently, so I got one on order. The grand total of 15 quid, so that's good news. So engine mounts are in and looking dandy. I'm quite pleased with how that's turned out. So the next challenge is going to be gearbox mount, but that'll be a next video. Hopefully you enjoyed that. It's been quite interesting to put a ST into the Escort. So far so good. Of course I put one in the pop. That was a bit easier than this, if I'm honest, because the pop I fabricated the bulkhead and the gearbox tunnel to suit where I wanted the engine to fit. Whereas with the Escort, I've had to sort of work around the existing bulkhead and gearbox tunnel. In hindsight, I think I would have made, if I was doing this again, I think I'd make my own gearbox tunnel again rather than use the auto tunnel. But hey ho, it is what it is. It's also fitted in there nicely now. The engine's level, it's plumb and it's straight with the car. So the next thing is to work out a gearbox mounting. Now, on the pop, I used some BMW 3 Series mounting bobbins for their gearbox. So that's the route I'm going to go with this. And with the gearbox, it has to land on the mountings, not hang off the mountings, if that makes sense. So I've got to make them an under cradle. So we'll cover that when we come to it. But to do that, I want the car rolling so I can get it across my pit. So I can work from up underneath and what have you. So I will get the front suspension back on. Again, it's all temporarily, it's all just a dry fit at the moment. I intend to do coilovers on the front struts as well. And on that front strut department, I've actually got some Escort Mark II struts now, which somebody offered to me, so that's good news. I'm not having to fight with the brakes and the rotors and everything not fitting properly on those weird struts that I had. So thanks again for watching. Please do subscribe if you're not already. And that's a real massive help. I can't stress that enough for you guys who don't subscribe. If you subscribe, it makes a big difference to the channel. So thanks again. See you on the next one.
Aqui no Porto de Ferro, tinha uma vez na época do ano, também. Não, não. Não.